Over the last decade, you've probably heard a lot of talk about China. China is on the rise, its modernization, its technology, its financial growth. And where does America fall in the lineup? I think once upon a time, everyone knew that America was great. But is it still great? Or is it on the way out? Let's dig in and find out. Is this the end of the world as we know it? Or is it really just the beginning? Listen, if you're watching me on my YouTube channels, my social media, you know we're talking about collapsed banks. You know that we're talking about government bailouts, the government printing $4 trillion. We're talking about the Fed hiking up rates. We're talking about inflation that's getting out of hand. And a lot of people are really wondering, the real estate market, is this a crash? Is this a correction? There's so much uncertainty right now. And when banks start failing, it starts reminding us of what 2008 felt like. Now check it out. In his latest book, economist and geopolitical expert Peter Zeihan made some very bold claims. Number one, global supply chains will soon be a thing of the past. China, the US's biggest rival, won't last another decade. America's golden age is in the near future. Let's explore why he thinks this way and why he actually might be right, because we're going to end this debate once and for all between America, China, who's really going to win in the end. What does the future look like for you? America relies heavily on China because China is making everything. Look at the bottom of something. Made in China, made in China, made in China. And yet, we're about to enter a world of DeGlobalization. Check it out. The modern global economy relies almost entirely on one constant factor: cheap and safe cargo shipping. Rising tensions in the Middle East plus war in Ukraine have made global supply chains less secure, and America has reacted by becoming more isolationist. In other words, why are we outsourcing? Why are we going overseas? You know what? Maybe part of our strategy needs to be taking all of that and bringing it back in-house. Let's start by talking about one of the most successful companies on the planet that has struggled through this pandemic and post-pandemic era. And yes, I'm talking about Apple. I'm talking about the iPhone specifically. Did you know that this is made from parts assembled from 43 different countries? The COVID pandemic showed just how fragile this web of logistics can be, and with China still facing lockdowns, Apple is struggling to keep their assembly lines moving. So it's constant back orders, they can't keep up, everything's messed up, and you gotta be thinking, are they reconsidering their relationship with China? So what happens if companies stop outsourcing to China, other parts of the world, and start bringing those jobs back home? What happens when we start building factories in America again? Will that give us a boost in jobs? Well, interesting side note, what is the impact of AI on our world today? The World Economic Forum came out in 2020 and said AI over the next 5 years by 2025 is going to take down 80 million jobs. Maybe those jobs are going to get redistributed and some of them are going to come back from this isolationist strategy where companies start saying, you know what? America is fully capable of its own manufacturing, its own industry. Let's bring it back home because you know what? It's more safe, it's more secure, and maybe in some cases it will be more expensive, but I think there's a little bit of pride returning back to that made in America. Now, what's kind of crazy in his book is that Peter also talks about the fall of China. So this is the second of three things we're talking about today. China is in a lot worse shape than most Americans realize for three dominant reasons. Number one, they have a problem with rising labor costs. Rising economies like Vietnam and the Philippines are starting to outcompete China in the market for cheap labor. On top of that, you've got demographic collapse. China's birth rate is at an unsustainable 1.28 kids per woman. Without workers to sustain the older population, their nation is going to collapse. And then number three, agricultural shortages. China is the world's largest agricultural importer. This works in a global economy, but 1.4 billion people is a lot to sustain domestically. And Peter goes further in his book to share a bunch of other reasons outside of this, where he basically says, yeah, China actually may have already experienced its golden era. It is not sustainable, and it's going to be on the down. And America at the same time, guess what? Where's it going to be? It's going to be on the rise. So one of the reasons why Peter's getting a lot of attention right now is because he's made some really bold predictions that have come true. One of which was Russia invading Ukraine. He saw that coming from a mile away. He announced it. He got a lot of press for it. And so a lot of people are saying, wow, between that and some of your other predictions, what else into the future can this futurist actually see? Well, he says America is not going anywhere. America has a lot going for it. It is energy independent, has a growing population, and has the most productive agricultural zones in the world. In other words, as the world deglobalizes, America, it's probably going to be just fine. And here's 3 specific reasons why. Now, before I share these 3 things with you, you need to understand that a recession is not bad, right? If you watch CNN, Fox News, they're going to tell you this is awful, just listen to the media. But what's actually happening is in a recession, your economy is falling apart. And titans of industry, brand new business leaders, they emerge and they say, wow, these are big problems. Let's see if we can solve them. And so part of what we get to look forward to over the next decade is new innovation. And what can we do to actually improve the economy? Check this out. What it means specifically for you, what it means for me is number 1, inflation, it's here to stay. It is inevitable. And you've been told this is a really bad thing. But guess what's made me a lot of money in real estate in the last couple of years? Inflation. Check it out. Rapid inflation makes investing in real estate, in other words, hard tangible assets, incredibly important in the game of building wealth. In other words, you can see this happening. Imagine if you could go back in time to like San Diego, LA, or New York before those markets took off. That's what's happening right now. And for me, I've actually isolated the top 5 markets out of 324, whereas in California and New York, we lost over 500,000 population to each of those states. They're moving somewhere else. They're moving into Florida, they're moving to Texas. And if you look at the migration patterns and the population patterns, and you look where economies are moving, there are 5 specific markets in the US where I'm buying as much real estate as I possibly can, because guess what happens once we take a breath and rates come down? I believe that the real estate market is going to boom like never before. It is going to go through the roof. So it's not a problem, it's an opportunity. On top of that, industry is on the rise in America. As global supply chains collapse, American companies have already started retooling places like Texas or Ohio for industrial production. And I want you to think what that means. Like, think of how many millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of jobs are overseas that are on their way to coming back home. And number 3, you've got the return of foreign capital. As China's economy collapses, investors are pulling their money out and putting it back into the US, fueling jobs, fueling growth. In other words, we're literally about to see one of the great economies that's been on the rise fall, according to Peter's prediction, and we're gonna actually see all of that flood right back into America, putting it truly in its golden era. So how do you use this information to improve your financial situation? I'm telling you right now that it's doom and gloom and it looks like misfortune, but I'm telling you this is actually when fortunes are made. The gap, the division between the wealthy and the poor, it is going to widen, and the reality is consumers and poor people in middle class, they're not going to act. They're going to listen to the news, they're going to do less. But the wealthy actually understand this is the opportunity, and this is where you quadruple down to see some of your greatest gains. I'm personally experiencing it in my own life. I'm seeing it in my real estate portfolio. I'm seeing it in my tech companies. I'm seeing it in my franchises. And so you got to be asking yourself, what should you be doing? Well, I have a gift for you to help you out. I created a roadmap. This book just came out. It's called Have It All. It's 5 different ROIs of how you redistribute your own wealth. You've got money sitting likely in a 401k or a savings account or an IRA or equity in a home. And in this book, I'll share with you 5 places where if you'll just move it from here to there, you have a chance to literally become financially free in 5 years or less. On top of that, we have AI. It is a whole new world. So don't listen to the doom and gloom. This book will give you a roadmap where anyone can become a mega multimillionaire. That means enough millions that it's not just about surviving, but thriving. It means that there's leftover money for charity or for your posterity, for your family. And if you want that, this book is a free gift from me to you. Click the link below, grab a copy of this book today. I'll send it in the mail. And if you want, I'll even have a member of my team contact you and give you the cliff notes on it and give you some options. What would Kris Krohn do if he were in your financial shoes? And if you want that, just indicate that when you get the book for free, and I'll have a member of my team reach out to you and literally give you a game plan of what Kris Krohn would do if he were you. Hopefully that stimulates your own economy. It gives you ideas. It gets you thinking outside of the box and figuring out what you can do. This is a perfect action step if you're worried about the recession, or if you're excited and bullish but you don't know exactly what you should be doing. Click the link, grab a copy right now. All right, Kris, that was a dope video. Do you have more? Turns out I do. I also have a YouTube channel. You could subscribe to it. But here's what I think you should do next. In 2023, if you want to know the 5 biggest financial moves that will set you up for life, click this video and let me give you that map right now.